Could it be that the land of haggis and kilts, Scotland, played a pivotal role in the history of the slave trade? Surely, such a beautiful and culturally rich country wouldn't be entangled in a story that's etched with pain, heartbreak, and inhumanity. But history, as we know, is a complex tapestry of truths, some of which may be hard to swallow. The tale begins in the late 17th century. Scotland, like many European countries, was gradually becoming a part of the global economy. The country was witnessing a surge in its population and a demand for more goods and services. This led to a need for cheap labor, and the African slave trade offered a solution. By the early 18th century, Scotland had become a significant participant in the transatlantic slave trade. Scottish merchants, fueled by the visions of prosperity, began to invest heavily in the trade. Cities like Glasgow, Edinburgh, and Dundee became bustling centres of trade, with ships leaving their ports laden with goods for Africa and returning with enslaved people from the continent. Scottish merchants weren't just involved in the trade, they also owned plantations in the Americas and the Caribbean. The profits from these plantations, worked by enslaved Africans, flowed back into Scotland, contributing significantly to the country's economic development. By the mid-18th century, Scotland's involvement in the slave trade was at its peak. The country was profiting massively from the trade, and its economy was booming. But as we know, every era has its sunset, and so did Scotland's participation in the slave trade. The abolition movement began gaining momentum in the late 18th century. Many Scots, influenced by the ideas of the Enlightenment, started raising their voices against the trade. The fight was long and arduous, but eventually, the voices of the abolitionists prevailed. In the early 19th century, the slave trade was officially abolished across the British Empire, including Scotland. But the scars of the trade still lingered. The wealth amassed through the trade had already reshaped Scotland's landscape, contributing to the growth of its cities, industries, and institutions. To summarize, Scotland's involvement in the slave trade spanned over a century, beginning in the late 17th century and ending in the early 19th century. During this period, Scotland not only actively participated in the trade, but also profited immensely from it. The wealth generated through the trade played a significant role in Scotland's economic development. However, the country also witnessed a strong abolition movement, which eventually led to the end of the trade. The story of Scotland's involvement in the slave trade is a stark reminder of the complexities of history. It is a tale of economic development fueled by inhumanity and oppression, but also a story of resistance and the eventual triumph of justice. And as we delve into these chapters of the past, we understand better the world we live in today, and hopefully shape a more compassionate future.